But when we are in situations where we're not the leaders and we're just part of the crowd and we're very much outsiders, the only outsiders, we can feel so uncomfortable now. And what you told me this year, we were at a basketball game, and parents tend to be older here too. So I think at that particular crowd at that game were definitely the youngest people. And you said, what did you do? You remember what you said to me? You said, I just feel like they're all so much more mature than I am. And we're sitting there. I think we both had hats on, and just you feel like you're in high school again. Like these are the cool people that know how to relate with people, and then it's like there's certain situations where you just don't even know where to begin, and you feel uncomfortable in your own skin. Well, here we go.
Welcome back to Unmasked and Messy.
The journey through life's messiness. We feel like the whole world thinks and acts like we do so often.
As in, we.
As people, no? Because we have one perspective, one way of thinking, of doing life in our context, right? As Americans. And then you move to another country, knowing it's going to be different, and you realize how you act, how you talk, your manners, they are all very unique to just your context, to your culture. Yeah. And it is shocking, no?
Yeah, it's that experience for me anyway, that for the first time made me ask questions about my own culture. Things that, and I realized this, I had never asked these questions. Why do we do this? Why do we think this way? And that's a surprise when you go through life for 30 something years and all of a sudden you realize, we do think this way, but why?
The whole culture shock thing is a real thing. And I think it continues even after being here for a decade, over a decade. There are still things that we are learning. And before we came here, we had gone to a conference, and a pastor had said it takes you at least 10 years to begin to understand the culture that you're living in. And I blew him off, like, whatever. And here we are, 11 years in. And I think I can say I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of these cultural things and where do they come from and why. And, maybe they're the superficial actions. No, we're used to that now. But really, why is this? We're barely scratching the surface.
Yeah. Being long-term missionaries, it took me quite a few years, and this is something maybe I never even thought about, but it took me quite a few years to feel really, really, really at home.
Yeah.
That way in which you're excited to get back or you're comforted by going back home. I didn't really feel that until about 6 years after living here. But then you're right. Even in the 10, 11 years that we've lived here, and even though I have that experience where now I do feel more at home here, we have information about the culture, but we don't necessarily think and feel the way that they do. We're gaining some of that, I think, little by little. And it costs a lot of time.
Yeah.
To be able to, begin to even scratch the surface.
And then, not only do you have a different culture to learn when you go into a different country, but depending on where you're at in that country, the culture can be completely different. So when we moved to the island had its own culture, had nothing really to do with the mainland.
Yeah.
It's its own special culture. There for a year, then we moved to a suburb of Madrid. It had its own culture. Yeah. The way people dress, the warmth of people. Whether there's many people that speak English or not, it had a very particular culture to itself. And then we moved into the city 8.5 years ago, and so we're in the capital of this nation, Madrid. So, Spanish to the core, but also you have that city culture on top of the Spanish culture, which I think in all the world, cities just have a specific culture to them.
Absolutely. That cosmopolitan, lots of people, lots of commerce, lots of information, lots of style, lots of just everything concentrated in one place creates a unique environment for sure. So it is very Spanish, but also very city cosmopolitan in its own way, which sets cities apart.
And then, on top of all of that, we have a church that's full of all different kinds of cultures. We have Spanish people, we have Colombians, Peruvians, Venezuelans, Cubans,
Ecuadorians,
We have from Oksana is from
Ukraine,
Ukrainians, Italians, El Salvador,
yeah,
Honduras,
at one time,
Mexicans,
yeah,
Brazilians. I mean, all over Americans. They're from all over. And so we're all coming together in an intimate space because we spend time together, we eat together, we do life together. And people just aren't the same as you. And so it's just this constant learning that we're doing of not just Spanish, not just city, but all over the world.
yeah. And you want to understand. I think that's part of feeling at home is you want to,
Yes.
understand the people. This country has such a different history than America does. America had its own civil war, over much more over a century ago. Spain has had a civil war within
Not
a century not too long ago, and so those things impact and shape the mentality, culture, and you want to know those things. You want to learn those things, but it takes time, and you want to love the people here and get to know the country. It's a challenge.
So, coming to Spain, what would you say the top one or two things, culturally speaking, that have been the biggest shock or have been the biggest choke in your life?
I would say one of the biggest things is general customer service, and more than anything, in the face to face interactions. When you go to the bank, when you go to the supermarket, you want you expect people, at least from our culture, to be a certain way, to have a certain level of friendliness and an attitude of service, and that's just not a part of Spain. It wasn't when we first got here. I think maybe things are changing a little bit in terms of uh, the value of customer service. But for me, that was a shock because we had our own business, and that was also a big value that we put upon life. Is hey, we go somewhere, we pay money, we do whatever. This is our patronage. That's the way you say it. You should.
I'm paying for your service.
Yeah.
That better be good.
Yeah, yeah, and so that's a significant part of California American mentality.
Yes.
That I brought with me that was very much ingrained into who I was. And so that kept on being frustrating when I'd go to the bank, places like that. The bank and the grocery store, I think, are probably the most significant. And then the way people talk, they're very we are so expressive and use facial expressions and different things in our normal speaking to each other. And here it's not like that. And it could be a very just dry, kind of direct tone, whether you're talking to somebody at a store or, meeting somebody in the city on the street. People are just very like, there's just a sharpness and an edge, and it kind of
Yeah.
catches you off guard. So there's a way of speaking, customer service, kinds of things like this. And like I said, when I pass people on the street, uh, there's no, oh, after you. Oh, go ahead. No, you. Let,
Merge, everybody merge.
let me get that for you. You don't get that. And it used to make me angry. I don't think it does anymore.
Definitely think like manners, American manners, because they have manners. It's just their own, you know. Like helping women. The women here in Spain are very strong. They, you know, super women, you know, and so they don't need help. And I need help. If I'm carrying bags, can a man just offer to help me? If I have my hands full and I need to open the door, can a man just open the door for me? But it doesn't even run through their minds because I think it probably because, you know, the women are very independent here. But I still would like that. I think that's helpful to be kind and helpful. Um, Convenience in America is everything. It's not here in Spain. Siesta is a real thing. You know, small businesses close for 3 hours in a day. Older people go and have a nap. Our kids' school they have 2 hours in the middle of the day to go home and eat, and then they go back to school for an hour and a half. Not convenient. Banks, they're only open for a certain amount of hours. When we have to renew our visas or whatever we have to do with that, we have to pay taxes at a certain bank, you know, and get the receipt, go do this. If we picked up a package, remember when we first got here to pick up a package from the post office or whatever, from customs, we'd have to go pay for it somewhere else.
Get the form online, go pay for the fee at a bank, and then maybe you even had to go to customs first.
Yes.
Go pay the fee at the bank and then come back to customs, and then they would give you the package.
And they're not close together. I mean, it's so convenience. You gotta get rid of that word in your mind. Things don't have to make sense. I think I'm always trying to, well, why would they do it like this? Because it would be easier, make more sense. But it doesn't have to make sense because this is how they've done it for years and years and years. And then the summer comes, and businesses all over can just put a handwritten note on their door saying, out for the month, be back in September. And it is not a big deal. Everyone does it. So that is so different, the convenience in America. I don't know how it is now, but when we left over a decade ago, all kinds of stores were open during the night, you know, like 24/7. And you don't find that here. You gotta wait. There's always holidays here.
So many holidays.
Yeah.
When we didn't have a car and we lived outside of the city, those holidays would always catch us by surprise and be a shock because everything would be closed. We wouldn't know about it. We wouldn't expect something to be closed right in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it would be closed, no buses running, or things would just change with the metro. Or
yeah. But I do have to say, so these are differences. We're getting used to them, I would say. At first, they are a huge hit to us because it doesn't make sense. But then I think that there is part of us that begins to appreciate these things. And one of those things that I really appreciate that has to do with convenience is that they are not living to work as Americans would contend to do. You know, how much money can I make? You know, if I work these extra hours or, you know, get this extra side job, I'll be able to make this much money. We have not seen that is the mentality here. They actually work to be able to live. They have holidays. They take a month-long vacation every year.
So many people are off during Easter week.
Yes.
They take a vacation. Yeah. It's like very traditional, common.
Yeah. So to close their store for, let's say, the month of August, as Americans, we would think, how much money are we going to lose? Are we going to be... But they don't think like that. Money is not king here, you know? But what is enjoying life, being with their family. And so I think it is a healthy mentality to have here, and probably something people from all over the world can can I don't know learn from.
You bring your own stuff and you expect things to be a certain way. So yeah, I'm still learning. I think that there are still things that can rub against me and challenge me and kind of poke me a little bit. I feel like I was frustrated and mad all the time for a good handful of years. And I don't know if yeah, it was like I almost held it against people. Like, oh, why does it have to be this way? But that's my foolish, just immature way of thinking. And so now I think that God continues to work in me by his grace. Thank you, Lord.
Hmm.
And I accept things. Tim Keller talks about something called common grace.
Yes.
And that's something that I've really needed to understand here in Spain, that there is so much beauty in the people and the culture and in the differences.
Yes.
And this reality of common grace is that even in a place that um, isn't necessarily strong in Christianity or whatever, sometimes you have unbelievers that treat you better than somebody in the church might treat you. Why is that? Because they are still created in the image of God, and there's this common grace. And although that person isn't perfect, there is something that's shining through that God has just placed in them. And I think we see that all throughout the culture, is that there's just this beauty of common grace, the things that are amazing, the people that are amazing, and that we have grown to love. And so, yeah, I think it's still a process. I think I'm still learning. And I think I'm less American now, if that can even be said. And I would prefer to live here than I would back in California. But maybe that's also got its own other things attached to it.
Yeah. Yeah, the longer you live in one place, you realize the less that you're becoming from the place you're from. Like we're never going to be Spaniards, but we're less and less like Americans. I don't know.
Maybe European. Maybe we have
Yeah.
some more European mentality.
Yeah.
What's crazy for me, and in the city, you find many things that you love about food and everything in the city. Everything about food is available here in the city. But you always miss things back home. When we first came, I remember thinking, oh, when I go back, I want to have this, I want to do that, I want to have this.
In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A, go to Trader Joe's.
Yeah, and then, hit up a taco shop.
Yeah.
Have some barbecue. And those things are less and less.
Absolutely.
I think maybe In-N-Out and Chick-fil-A are the two top things. And other than that, I don't think about it too much, and I don't miss it like I longed for it in the past.
Definitely. I think the last time we were in the States 3 years ago, something like that, I love Trader Joe's. And so I went there. And in the end, I didn't really want to buy anything. I was just happy to look around. 8 years ago, going there, I would have wanted everything, And so, but I think that's good. Less and less we have a list for people to bring when they come to visit. So that's kind of superficial stuff. The way people dress, very different from Americans. You can spot an American on the streets in the city very easily. The shoes that they wear, the coats that they wear, the weather. We've learned you do not wear flip flops. You do not wear what are they called, Crocs, unless you're by the pool. You are judged harshly, and people are shy from letting their judgment.
Put down.
Yeah, coats. It goes by season, not by temperature. Certain coats for certain season. It's just appropriate wear.
There's rules to these things.
There's rules. And so even though we'll never be Spaniards, and we will always look different, there is a part of us that wants to fit in some way. Follow the respectful rules of the culture here, when it comes to that. And then sometimes no, I guess.
I think in some ways we adhere and we want to, connect and adhere and integrate.
Judge.
Oh, the sandals. I mean, being from Southern California, you just go to church in sandals.
You live in flip flops.
Yeah, and that's totally acceptable. And so walking down the street, going to the supermarket and getting looked up and down, yeah, it's enough to say, oh, maybe I won't put my shoes on. But there is this aspect, and again, there's probably some more detailed reasons why this is, but in some ways, I've kind of held strong to certain attitudes of style or the way that I dress.
Like this.
Yeah, I mean this no, but
That's true.
the hat, and things like this, and I've almost just resisted, but that's probably for multiple reasons.
Like doing a hat. No change. I like it. The hat, the earrings.
You're sweetie. But lately, I see, people when we go to our kids' sports games, volleyball, basketball, and I think, why do I resist? When you think about missionaries that you hear stories about, that they changed everything. They changed completely. They completely changed the dress that the people.
Like going to China.
Yeah, exactly. That's the perfect example. And so I'm still met with that challenge, and I think I want to, be okay with fitting in rather than standing out.
And those things are superficial, but they actually do matter a lot. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about identity, like really fitting in. And I think our Saturdays in this season of our lives are full of sports events, which gets us in with a community. But they can be so uncomfortable, no? We have our comfort place at our church and the ministry we do when we are the leaders, when we're there, organized, putting people together. It's not about us, it's about putting people together and meeting their needs. But when we are in situations where we're not the leaders and we're just part of the crowd and we're very much outsiders, the only outsiders, we can feel so uncomfortable, no? And what you told me this year, we were at a basketball game, and parents tend to be older here too. So I think at that particular crowd at that game, we're definitely the youngest people. And you said, do you remember what you said to me? You said, I just feel like they're all so much more mature than I am. And we're sitting there. I think we both had hats on, and just you feel like you're in high school again. Like these are the cool people that know how to relate with people, and then it's like there's certain situations where you just don't even know where to begin, and you feel uncomfortable in your own skin, and you don't know what to do. You've already said the things that it's tough. No, and then Saturday is only next week, and I have to do this all over again with the same people.
It is tough, and I'm introverted. I don't think people are convinced. Many people think otherwise, but I'm very introverted. I've felt so anxious for so much of my life that it's just easy for me to, and so stepping out, being social are things that take more work for me.
Especially when you don't have like an objective.
Yes. Yeah. Like work, church, things like this.
Ministry, yeah.
Yeah. And so, going to those games, you want to fit in, but it's so easy because there is that gap of everything. Age, they get you, there's a group that kind of herds together, and it makes you feel all the more like an outsider. And they're talking whatever they talk about, and I may or may not have something to even say.
Right.
And so you're in another language. It's tough. And it really is easier to just be quiet than to really, really integrate. Jordan in the Basque Country, good friend. That guy's a great example for me. He's very opposite when it comes to personality, I think. So he gets in there. He's making his way. He's learning the language as well. and has its own challenges up there, but I think he does a good job of integrating. And I just, it's tough for me to overcome those cultural differences, I think.
Yeah. And even in conversations, there are rules that you need to follow that aren't not necessarily natural for us as Americans. But I think even because I feel like I want to know someone, like, I want to know what's their job, what's going on, what's hard. Those are the conversations I'm interested in, I think, just because of what we do. But you don't ask those things. If you're in a public setting with people, even in a group at a coffee shop, and I've learned this the hard way, you don't ask questions like that. It is all very superficial, and you don't ask what they do for work. I mean, like that's like probably as an American, one of the first things when you meet someone, oh, what do you do? And so it almost, I feel at times my hands are tied behind my back, like I don't know exactly where to go in this conversation, but when you're listening to what these people are talking about, it's very just, in a way, I can feel bored. Like, I don't care about talking about those things, but it's not that they're superficial people. They're just certain settings that you do not go to anything even semi-deep. You're just very superficial.
Some boundaries that people
There are boundaries. And so I think, we're still learning that. But when people do include you, even though they know that you're nothing like them, you just love them and you're thankful for them.
That's true. The people that are from here that we've been able to enter and share life together, there really is an embrace, and people are willing to help you. We
Yeah.
experience that with some of our friends that are from this country, and it's really cool. It is a real blessing. It's interesting that the observation that you made about the things that people talk about, because people go and they sit at a bar or outside, on these little tables and, on the patios in front of the bar or restaurant, and they just talk.
Yeah.
And they talk and they talk and they get together and they get
very social.
Yeah, and so it's interesting that that they have those boundaries and they talk the way that they talk, but they do it a lot.
They're talking all the time.
Yeah.
And even the sports games, it's not that you're there to watch your kids, although they do a little, but they're there to just talk to people.
Yeah.
And I want to watch our kids play. Like, it's just everything is very different and very social. Yeah. But even like going into people's homes, that is not the norm. If you want to hang out, you go to a bar, which would be like a little cafe. They call them bars here. That's the appropriate place to meet up, which is not an intimate place, So learning. And then you realize after so many years, this probably, even though it feels more like home now, I'm not like homesick, nothing like that. I don't think I'll ever have that feeling of this is where I belong. Like this is like I'm 100% comfortable because of the language, because of the culture. My family's not here, But then going back to the States, it's also not the same country we left. That's the reality. It is not the same country. So much has changed. There's been so much change, but also we have changed.
Yeah. And then our church as well, people move on with life.
Totally.
We step out of that community at a certain moment and we think everything's going to be the same when we go back, and people have moved on and life is different for everybody. And those memories of what we had when we left, they're gone.
They'll never be the same. It will never be the same. I remember when we lived in California, I loved our life there. There is still a sense of there's always something that just seems missing or something that I just can't be completely comfortable. And I think that is something from God because there's something that our hearts are longing for in a distant land, and even though our flesh craves to be comfortable, my flesh craves to have a place to be like, this is the home. this is the feeling I've been longing for 12 years, you know? And I think the idea of pilgrimage, it's something that's very real to us from this whole process of coming out here to live. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the fact that we will probably never find that place again where it's like, this is home.
Yeah.
In the depths of who we are, where our identity is wrapped around, I think it's a good thing. And in Hebrews 11, the Hall of Faith. No, it's not Hebrews 11. Yeah, it is. Hebrews 11. It says, by faith Abraham, which we know God called him out of his land. By faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go out to the place which he would receive as an inheritance. And he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith he dwelt in the land of promise, as in a foreign land, a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited, this is what I wanted to say, for he waited for this city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God.
It's a beautiful word. I love that verse, and that's what came to mind. I didn't know you were going to share it, but that's what came to mind. And we were talking about this just a second ago. And pilgrimage. I love that picture, to be a sojourner. I've always related to that in some way, maybe even before we were missionaries. But
didn't sojourner, wasn't that one of your emails years and years ago, or game name or something?
Something. But the first time we went back to the States, God had just blessed me with this verse in Genesis where Israel, Jacob, realizes his son Joseph is alive. And it's such a great moment because you think this chapter is done. You think that this person is never coming back, and there are situations that are like that. But in this case, it's a really great example of something that you think is done, that's never coming back, that is a closed chapter, and God has this blessing around the corner where he thought his son was dead, but he doesn't just receive a son back. He gets to receive his grandchildren, the sons of his son. He gets to bless them. And in that story, Joseph takes Jacob before Pharaoh. And I think it's Pharaoh that asks him, how old are you? And I think about this verse probably continuously. And he says, the days of the years of my life have been few and evil, or something, he says, and they don't meet up to the standards of the days of my fathers before me. But, my pilgrimage and my sojourn, I believe he mentions there. And I just love that picture of, that's how he described his life, the days of the years of this pilgrimage, this passing through that I've been on. And I think in some way, moving away from our country has ruined us a little bit, has taken us from that comfort and has challenged us, confused us, and yet brought us to, I think, greater conclusions, to see the beautiful people, to appreciate a country that's not our own, to love what is very different. But I think the reason that we came was because of the gospel, because of the mission. And I think there's no greater thing to be ruined for.
Wow. Amen.
But it's an interesting thing because we want home. You want to feel safe. You want to feel comfort. Because so often life is not that, and life challenges you, and life makes you feel out of control. It hurts, burns, it's just overwhelming, gives you fear. I think even as believers, we go through these things. So we want those things. Like you said, sometimes we look in the past and we think, this is the moment that I was the most happy in. This is what I have to reproduce. But it's not like that. We move forward. I don't think we'll ever get those things back. I think maybe God gave us those moments for that brief period of life, in that time. but we look ahead, pressing on towards the goal for the prize, that upward call.
To the land that has foundations. My God. Amen. Well, it's been good. Been good. We don't have home here, but we do have home with each other.
Yeah.
Jesus is our true home.
Yeah. Yeah. Family is definitely where my home is right now. And I love being with you guys. I love when we're all tucked away in our apartment, the door's closed, and we're all together, and it's locked, and nobody's sleeping.
What should we say?
It's the word, yeah. Yeah, so we love family, and yet we still look forward to what's to come. Yeah.
But it is nice. We can walk down the street now and see people we know, even though we're in a big city. Those things are nice. Even though we have a different perspective now, there are some things we still treasure to have been in the same place, the same apartment, the same area of the city for a while now, 8.5 years in the same place. And so you do build those roots, even though they're not what you thought they would be.
Yeah. And I guess that's another aspect of it is coming from a suburb to a city. We probably go through culture shock, moving from a suburb to New York or some other big city. So the city is very different. The culture in the city is very different, but we begin to live here and appreciate it. I like just walking out the door and seeing the pharmacy or the grocery store. And the longer we live in the city, we don't want to travel 10 minutes to go anywhere.
I don't want to go on the metro.
No, we just want to step out of our house, get what we need to get, and come right back.
That's why we can't wear flip flops. All right. Well, let's finish it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. What are we?
Unmasked. No.
Yeah.
Unmasked and messy.
Okay. See you next time.
Adios.